Good morning, and the presentation today is on the road to an equitable, sustainable, and inclusive urban future. And what we're looking at in terms of a space, places, our urban infrastructure, transport, is concentrating on foot, by bicycle, and on public transport. What we need to do is focus on, for persons with disabilities, for the elderly, for people who are economically not as well off, for women, for all other disadvantaged groups, we need to provide an environment where they can live, commute, move with dignity, equity, safe mobility, and sustainability. And how do we do that? Who is it we're looking at? We're looking at diverse kinds of people, persons with disability, including people with physical disabilities, mobility issues, persons with vision impairments, hearing impairments, children, senior citizens, families, mothers with children. Also, every day we struggle with barriers as people without disabilities, carrying heavy luggage, taking people with us, being caregivers. In terms of equity and inclusion, disability is universal for all of us. At different points in life, people face disabilities, whether temporary, whether genetic, whether by the conditioning, and also by the environment. Most people at some point will experience some form of disability over the course of their lives. This is a reality that we face today, and we have to design our environments and all our systems with universal provisions and not special provisions. There is no one group we are looking at. We don't look at wheelchair users. We don't look at people with visual impairments. We look at everybody. We look at different modes of transport. When we talk about cycles, we don't just talk about cycles. We talk about tricycle users. We talk about people pulling hand carts, bicycle rickshaws, e-rickshaws. When we talk about people who are walking, we talk about people who have crutches, some have calipers, people use ground mobility equipment as well, and devices. We look at people with disabilities, who, as Mr. Khaitan had mentioned to you, my colleague who was to make the presentation is in a wheelchair. Today, since the stage is not accessible, what would have been the option here? She would have given a presentation from below the stage. If she had been lifted by maybe 4 people to help her get on stage, do you think that would be a dignified way for her to present as a speaker? Do you not think that that would make her feel less dignified, less included? If she was sitting down, wouldn't you have the same feeling for her and by her? Isn't that something that would limit us in getting out there for every person with disability? Similarly, for women, there are a number of barriers that women face in the environment, and I know some of the other speakers have talked of them, but I won't dwell on them. But they include many other issues, in particularly perceptions of safety and security, of equity, of intimidation. Similarly, for older people and the poor. Today, from 2000 to 2050, I believe the population is going to increase 55%. The population of senior citizens at the same time will increase 326%. So a vast majority of that group is also part of a disability sector. In some way or another, we will all get older, we will all have less time, less stamina, less energy, and less ability and dexterity to participate in the public environment. For the poor as well, unfamiliarity and intimidation by an inaccessibility in the environment also create further barriers in trying to raise the mobility level from different sectors of economic status. Children, the safety, the security, the ability that we are trying to establish fall apart as soon as we get out into our public environments. What happens to people in wheelchairs? People who have other impairments? What about families who have each and every one of these issues all combined together? And that's how typically as a society we travel. together in groups. The challenges, I've already gone through some of these. These are all the challenges we face, and they are basic challenges that we see every day of access, of timing, of stamina, of literacy, of access and ability. On our roads, where are they today? What are we looking at? We're looking at universal accessible infrastructure that benefits everybody, irrespective of age, gender, and disability. An inclusive urban future that will enhance the quality of life, increase independence, and mobility of transgeneration population. As you've already heard, that our families are changing, our family structures and caregivers and attendants are in short supply today. We don't have the support systems we did before. People are living longer, people are independent longer. The environment and the transit systems have to cater to that and be more user-friendly and create adequate space allocation for everybody. And here what we have to stress is 4 main aspects of access, affordability, reliability, and safety. And this addresses each and every one of these user groups. As long as we have environments and places that are simple, easy to use, and clear, reliable and convenient, predictable and consistent, affordable and comfortable, everywhere we go, we have a level of access, safety, dignity, and reliability. Towards this, we have to design our carriageways with separate motor vehicle and NMB lanes where they are required. Public transportation is the key, bus stops and bus bays for safety of the pedestrians away from the vehicular movements. Para-transport stands for cycle rickshaws, auto rickshaws, and taxis. These are very important today because these are the ones that cause conflicts with our public transportation bays and other road areas. Streamline parking and loading and unloading activities, and provide designated spaces for hawkers. All of this has to be well-lit, visible, accessible, safe, and clear. Clear to understand what these spaces are, where they are, and how to get to them and navigate them. We don't look at spaces and say, this is a tall order and it's not possible. It is possible. It's very easily possible, and I'm sure you've heard over the last few years, it is how you design your road spaces, how you not only create the differentiation between different transportation modes, between transportation modes and pedestrians, and also facilitate these activities with the adequate signage, lighting, space, and also, most important, and the most important immediate action that we have to look at is creating consistent, clear, and cohesive trip chains. From where you start your journey to your destination, that trip chain has to be accessible the complete way. You may have an accessible public transportation, but if there is no way, no accessible, safe, and reliable way to get there, we've failed right there. Connectivity with pedestrian infrastructure and public transport, again, the most important, and all of the linkages between the different systems. In the long run, we can provide the systems, but we have to plan for the long term. We have to plan for life cycle maintenance. If you build the service and put in a barrier, you've lost the value of what you've created. Monitoring and oversight is very important, and it's important to build up the capacity of implementing agencies and of user groups. If people don't understand what they are building and what interventions are being done, they will do it wrong or not in the spirit of what it's done. If a user does not understand that if you don't put a trash can in the middle of your street, or a hawker doesn't set up in the middle of a pathway, that is what is going to compromise the value of the entire trip chain. Towards safety, we have to look at road markings, signage, and wayfinding systems, be it traffic calming systems, be it tactile paving, intersection designs, street lighting, and police and emergency vehicles. Signage, road markings, graphic signage, auditory signals. Auditory signals help with person with disabilities. Graphic signages across different age groups, across literacy levels, across social strata, we can all understand a sign. We may not be able to read, but we can understand them. Accessibility. Creating level, clear, non-skid surfaces, access ramps, curb cuts, pedestrian crossings, tactile paving, and just basic color contrast. It helps all of us, whether we can see well, whether we can't. And creating these zones of no obstruction, where people understand what a designated footpath is, where a multi-utility zone is, and what the distinction and the differentiation between a footpath and the NMB or the traffic lanes are. Again, poorly maintained footpaths compromise the value of our trip chain. We have to create consistency across all elements of a journey. And it is important along all of these routes and spaces to provide public amenities of public toilets, benches, dustbins, and other street furniture. Restoring the spaces, opening up vistas and landmarks, landscaping and public art. To engage with our cities, we have to create spaces that people will come to and not be intimidated to come to because of the lack of facilities.
Another 1 minute.
That's almost. Integrating services in this entire aspect of water supply, sewage, electricity, telephone and gas lines, and stormwater drainage within designated multi-utility zones and not in the pedestrian way, so that every time service has to be dug up, it's not compromising the value of a service already provided. Costs, if included in an initial stage of planning, is negligible. It's part of your project cost, where it is a universal design feature, and it does create access for all. Refurbishment, on the other hand, is only 1 to 2% of the project cost. Time, effort, and convenience are the most important, and since most people cannot afford their the private vehicles, it is important that walking, cycling, and tricycle usage is emphasized. Street vendors, again, organization according to the designation, but they also help with the safety, security, and the perception, particularly for women and children and disadvantaged users. The benefits of all of this is an integrated mainstream transport service, access for all, long-term generation of revenue to this active and more independent user group, as well as the environmental benefits that we already know of. Our goal has to be equity. It's a democratic goal, and we cannot allow for road accidents, recession to hold us back, fuel prices, carbon emission, air pollution, congestion to set us back. The solution has to be planning for equity, accessibility, and sustainability. And they're all interlinked, and the time to act is now. Thank you.